Hello and welcome to Diephoria Worlds 2022 episode 1. We're recording this the day after week 1 of groups. Shout out to merch.riotgames.com for providing us with some Worlds merch, including this LeBlanc statue, this very large hoodie. Highly recommended if you're a fan of oversized stuff. You can pick yours up at merch.riotgames.com. I'm Dracos. Across from me is the wonderful Azael.
Hello.
To my right, my partner in crime perpetually, none other than Kadril.
What's up? What's up, gang?
Who spent the last 2 minutes growling into the microphone before we started this podcast.
You guys are really hyping up the intro, and then I don't know if you know, but on the dive, when you say the episode, it's got to be episode 1 of the dive.
Oh,
you know, you got to,
really?
yeah.
Damn.
Episode 1 of Diephoria in New York,
Thank
baby.
you. That was way better. Yeah.
You like that?
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
that. I like
Draco
the
said
passion.
the intro was his only contribution.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say it's not looking good.
All right, I'll leave now.
I don't know if
and
you're
you
gonna
can
be coming
just-
back
that's
for the
fine.
next
You know
episode.
what?
The door's over there, buddy.
The call time's really tough for me, guys.
Much your buddy, pal.
We just talk to each other now and just ignore it.
yeah, exactly.
Can we get like a screen? No, I'm kidding.
Just
I would
turn
never
your
do
chair
that.
a little bit, you know.
I see it as we go to New York. You find a cooler friend just out the
never
window in a
leave it.
heartbeat.
I would
You're just like,
never leave
ooh,
you.
look at that opportunity to roast you.
Look,
Mhm.
we came across
Yeah.
the world together. We can't have, you know.
Yeah.
we can't
Okay.
stop
All
meeting
right.
together.
You don't.
We
touch
tease
me.
the ones we love.
Yeah. Sure. Gentlemen, it was a wild group stage 1. I feel like I had a lot of expectations.
feel like
Most of them pretty low for my region.
I feel like I should have some sunglasses that I just put on right now and it says Euphoria along the top. I should
Yeah.
have brought something like that.
It's feeling like a good time. We are again in a situation where we're seeing a clear top 3, which to be fair, was ready for a top 2 and then an everyone else coming into the tournament. But LCK, LPL, and LEC all doing pretty dang well. No surprises in the first 2, but I think LEC a pleasant surprise. But overall, like what do you think caught you guys the most off guard in terms of looking at the top 3 when we came into this?
I mean,
groups.
how competitive it is, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. No teams have looked infallible. You know, JDG hasn't lost, but they literally almost lost their first game to EG. Gen.G did lose, right? Top
Yep.
has lost 2 games. Those were my big 3 coming into the tournament. I think probably pretty much everyone's big 3 coming into the tournament, right? So everyone has looked very, very beatable. I think the EU teams are more competitive than people were expecting. Largely, like Fnatic, I think, was hard to predict because they showed some really good games in LEC. So they showed some really bad games in LEC. People weren't, I think, certain like how they were going to necessarily stack up on the group stage.
Yeah.
They obviously looked really good in play-ins, which I think built confidence coming into group stage, and they've kind of continued that. But in general, I think that the big dogs have been less impressive than I expected, and some of the teams that I was expecting to be on the fringe have been more impressive, like pushing their way up into that conversation.
Yeah, I think for me, there was 2 big turning points in this group stage of like realization of, wow, we can be competitive. We collectively as the LEC, can we competitive against LCK and LPL? The first one was when Fnatic beat T1. That was like a game which I don't think anyone thought Fnatic would win. And all of a sudden they did a really fantastic game where it just looked kind of one-sided for them from the get-go when it comes to skirmishes and things. And
Well-
just like matching bot jungle, which we were unsure if it would work. The second one was Rogue beating Top Esports. Because we've now taken out the second seed from the LCK and the second seed from the LPL in convincing fashion to the point where it's not games that they're throwing away in a sense. It's just games where they're progressively getting leads and it's hard to fault what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, and I think there was this aura of untouchability, especially for T1 to a certain degree after their day 1 performance against EDG, where you look at the compositions on paper and you're like, there is no way T1 win this. And then they just spend the entire game styling on EDG, and then they draft a very similar composition against Fnatic. And I frankly was ready for the exact same thing to happen. But Fnatic like held their ground, outscaled, played super well. And it's a thing that I was not ready for at all. Like, this was not a Euphoria year for me. Like, as an EU pundit, I'm supposed to be like, I doubted them I've doubted all of our teams literally every step of the way.
I always doubted them.
I feel like that's my equivalent of the Kobe moment. Like, I cannot in good conscience say that I like thought any of this would happen because Fnatic were super messy. And like, while you could give them the benefit of the doubt on showing a better form than they did domestically, and they did get the time, as you highlighted, to ramp up through plans, there was like nothing on paper other than like blind faith that I could really like bet on in terms of like how their ceiling would look on an international stage. But Humanoid has been very good. I think the team across the board has been great. And it's been like outside of the most egregiously terrible level 1 in that EDG game, it's been like relatively smooth sailing. Rogue were a mystery too, despite their performance in finals. I think it's safe to say, and they've obviously been crushing it. And G2, I think as expected, have been struggling. But even then, even in games where I thought that they would just straight up lose, the JD Gaming game, a great example, they like made it super, super competitive.
I found this very interesting. You say G2 as expected are struggling, but I feel like if we're talking to analysts and even a lot of people from EU, everyone was saying they had more faith in G2 than in Rogue.
I think that, yeah. Well, here's the thing is I think that like Rogue, because for so long we've just gotten used to Rogue disappointing us. Rogue having these incredible regular seasons and then like falling flat, and a lot of the things that they were doing domestically in best of ones just not transitioning to important best of fives. And internationally they were still untested. And like that's part of the reason why I think I love the Rogue story so much, is not because they were like, people were like, they can do it. It's because like literally everyone was like, they can't do it. Like they're like literally forcing their way into every conversation.
You beat Fnatic, but for sure you're gonna lose to G2 this time.
But also for sure you're gonna lose to Fnatic next time. You know, for sure you're gonna lose to
Top
G2 next time.
DRX.
For sure you're gonna lose to, you know. And now it's like, now I think the faith
for
is
reals
there.
is this time, week 2.
Yeah. Like I feel a little bit bad, but also I just like, you know, I'm ready for them to prove me wrong over and over again. I think G2, my biggest concern was their bot lane stepped up a lot during MSI, but was like a clearer weak point in the final series against Rogue. And I was really sweating when we look at the caliber of bot lanes present in a lot of these groups, and maybe less so in their group, admittedly, than in some of the other groups. I was really concerned about how Fnatic and Targamas were going to do. And so far, they just haven't had a great tournament thus far. The JD Gaming was a great example. Targamas was getting caught out a ton on Alistar, and they did turn a lot of those fights. They did drag it late enough. BB on the Darius, I was skeptical about. They did make a lot of things work, but it's just not there yet, it feels like, for the G2 bottom lane.
Yeah. It's been a couple three best ones, of course. And one of them, it felt like you could rule it out because Caps was playing Seraphine. It didn't look like G2 in the first day.
Draft.
Like an Ornn Seraphine comp for G2 with a Caitlyn lane on bot. It's like, this is more of like a roguish comp, you know, swap the Seraphine out for a control mage. And then their game against EG, sorry. I felt like EG kind of handed it to them on a silver platter in the sense that their draft was so one-dimensionally telegraphed that if EG did not make plays everywhere, then G2 would just win by default.
And then Inspired was 0-0-0 at like 20 minutes.
And then there's literally 0-0-0 20 minutes. So after the first 2 games, I was like, G2's 1-1, but I don't think we've seen G2 yet. This is not really what G2's been like domestically. And then the JDG game was G2. Like Seraphine, Alistar bot, supportive bot lane, Caps on Sylas, BB on Darius, or like some carry top, and then go from there. And I think JDG made a huge mistake that game and like almost threw the entire thing away by just over-chasing into the red side jungle. And then G2 kind of threw it back towards them, but the game was quite competitive. What I will say was, I think another reason why a lot of people doubted Europe's chances this time around at Worlds was Rogue and G2 were like almost the last teams to arrive in New York, and they were scrimming each other. I was talking to Odo for a week straight. Like they had 7 days of scrims against each other on like double sets, and it's just you're scrimming the same team over and over. So you just create your own scrim meta where like all of a sudden Lucian Nami is being played by Rogue, and you don't really know what the Eastern teams are playing. And Fnatic wasn't scrimming at all. So you come to a tournament where Europe has its own meta with 2 teams and 1 team's not scrimming. And you're kind of like, well, why didn't we go earlier to New York? Why didn't we go a week earlier and scrim like T1 and stuff? They were there earlier. We weren't playing Champs Queue. Like, what do we do? Oh, God, it doesn't look like we're very well prepared here.
We sound like, I'm so sorry. We sound like such babies. We're like, all our teams, I don't know what to do. You know, like, oh. But I mean, I think it's like from an EU international fan perspective, you just had this like G2 safety blanket for so many years consecutively.
So
you're like, everyone else went up in flames. It's fine. Like G2 won't let me down, you know, like.
and then the Rogue blanket's on fire over there, and it's like, put it on. You can live life on the
Rogue blanket
edge.
is literally packaged up and it's nice, but but it's like off brand, and you're like, like you're like, I don't, like it's like literally right there. The G2 blanket some years is like sopping wet. It's dirty as hell, but it's like the one you've had since you were a kid. So you just don't want to let it go.
It's nice and worn in. It's nice really comfortable. Like, it fits you perfectly. The one is clearly
nice and shiny, but you just don't trust it. You're like,
Nope. You need to take that leap of faith. And I think a lot of people have faith in Rogue now from the trio. We'll see how the group stage progresses. But yeah, G2 I think is the one team which is underperforming out of the 3 of the European teams. Despite their competitive game against JDG, Damwon game looks really tough in the EG game. I'm not so sold on just yet. But Rogue seemed like very, very dominant the way they play the game. Fnatic, the game they lost against EDG, if that level 1 didn't happen, I wonder what the game would look like. I'm surprised they brought it back to the point of like winnable, when Sivir has 3 kills at 6 minutes.
I think, I don't know. They had a couple of incredible plays. I mean, like, Humanoid absolutely popping off in that fight
He
was
is
fantastic.
a man possessed. I'm so surprised by Humanoid. Like,
It's got to be the best league he's ever played. I feel like from through
it's
play-ins
unreal.
into groups, he's been just amazing. Basically, there's a one Akali game where he was like, okay. Every other game, it feels like he's just smurfing.
but I think he's played 3 games of Azir in a row.
Yep.
And
He might stop getting it.
I don't think he'll get Azir
Yeah,
from now
Azir
on.
is looking pretty good.
European
Yeah.
teams and Azir, man. Apart from Caps, everyone's just Larson and Humanoid are just kind of maining like Azir right now. So it's like, please don't ban it.
Well, and I think the big thing for Humanoid is he's a player that's like been very open about in the past about motivation issues or burnout. And I think that he's always a player that he rises to the level of the competition. You know what I mean? Like he might look like absolute just like clown ass in regular season in LAC, just
Yeah,
like
like
dicking
BDS is
around,
getting
you know,
three-man gang, dies
like
to
he's
a
just
goal.
dying to like
Yeah.
random, like they're on a board coming into his lane. He's like, you know, like just accepts his fate. But then at Worlds, he's like, his time to shine, you know, he's just absolutely unchained. Like
Yeah.
he's been saving himself for this moment.
Yeah.
Because I think
Super
that
Saiyan.
it's easy to forget in the context of this year that Humanoid was by far our best mid laner last year. Like by far, like far and away none. Like
Mhm.
and admittedly, like Caps and G2 were a hot mess inside and outside of what you saw on stage and from what we've heard behind the scenes. So hard for Caps to perform that year, but still Humanoid was really incredible. But it's crazy to see, especially after a pretty rough domestic year, that we're finally seeing that again on international stage.
This is his 4th World, isn't it, Humanoid? 2019, he got out of groups with Splice and played T1, got knocked out. 2020 was the Mad Lions incident. 2021, where they got out of groups and faced
There was another Mad
Dumb.
Lions incident.
I'm sorry, you mean the first Mad
the
Lions?
first Mad Lions incident. So we don't talk about the second one. And then this is his 4th year at World. So as much as he's not really a new face anymore to the league,
No.
really is. He's kind of like an established.
Yeah, we should go back and talk about plans again. Really, you know?
Yeah.
After EG beat Mad Lions, you know, I got really excited. I blacked out. You know, I just woke up here. So I'm ready for the first day of Worlds.
Ready for the first day of
I
Worlds?
was
Yeah.
Really excited. You know, NA's looking really good. We 3-0'd EU.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have a good shot. I think I'm feeling feeling positive.
I mean, like, we can use this opportunity. It's your time to take the floor, Isaac. You know, like
Oh,
we can do
God.
this. Like, you know, like, hey, Isaac, I'm Isaac. I'm an NA fan. Like, you know, like, how do you want to start this? You want to like, you know, how do you want to kick this off?
Hi, I'm Isaac, and I'm addicted to the LCS. I don't know, man. I mean, what can
Talk
you
to
say,
us.
right? You laugh or you cry. It's been brutal. I will say that my expectations were not like that all our teams were going to do well or anything close to that. I had EG 4th in their group. I had 100 Thieves 3rd or 4th in their group. So those ones feel less shocking to me. EG, I know people are being pretty harsh on them, but I almost am just willing to give them a straight up pass. You are literally playing with an Academy AD carry that you've been playing with for, I guess it's a bit over a month now, but about a month, right?
Yep.
You know, they're not playing with their star player, right? Like it's first team all pro AD carry. They're not playing with him. I think they have actually been the most competitive of our teams at Worlds, unfortunately in groups, even though they're 0-3. You know, they almost took down JDG. 100 Thieves, I'm going to be honest, I just didn't feel like they were in the best form, and I feel like their playstyle isn't really suited to playing against teams that they're underdogs against. They generally play really slow, and when you play slowly against teams that you're not favored against, you generally don't give yourself a lot of chances, right? So I thought that they could beat CFO. I mean, realistically, they could still maybe beat CFO in the second round. Maybe they do actually get 3rd in the group, and then whatever, they're about where I thought they would be. Though I will say less competitive in some of the individual games, but I will give credit to Someday, who I think has had some really good lanes.
Oh yeah.
He was clapping Doran up that one game. There have been some like individual moments, I think, from the different players and stuff who have had some kind of shining moments. The big disappointment for me is definitely C9. Not to say that C9 is like playing so much worse than the other teams, but just that I had more hope that they could be competitive. I think that's like, I mean, there's a lot you can say, right? At the end of the day, it's never going to be just one thing when your teams have lost 9 games in a row. You know, I can talk about the drafts. I think that the NA teams had a pretty poor read on the meta coming in. You know, you talked about the EU teams are just scrimming each other. Like, are they going to have a good read? Well, it turned out that they did have a pretty solid read. I think NA was over prioritizing Sejuani, picking it over Maokai. I think we over prioritized Fiora. We over prioritized MF. Right? There's a lot of different picks. Clearly, there was a focus a lot on early game on these like MF with not consistent damage comps. The Nidalee game. There's been a lot of this. this, where clearly the read I think is off. But it's very obvious that it's not just that, right?
Yeah.
If it was just that, you would still have wins, right? So I mean, it's unfortunately it's a lot of things, right? You look at the last C9 game. I was pretty happy with that draft. Top was like an absolute canyon, right? And at the end of the day, sometimes it is just like individual players just getting completely gapped. Sometimes it's team decisions or kind of like mental errors. You look back to the EG JDG game, just over pushing on mid and getting caught in a game that was really well in control for them that they could have taken Soul and won. So I mean, it's a lot of things. At the end of the day, the teams just aren't playing very well. I don't think they had a good read on the meta, and they're getting gapped. I mean, it's tough to watch, right? A lot of the games don't feel competitive, and I mean, I've watched every single LCS game for the last like 7 years, whether it's international or regional. I've watched every game, literally every single game. I love these teams. I love the league. I love the players. It hurts, man. It hurts to watch. It really does. It's just like depressing. It's really, really tough. Like I was watching the games with you yesterday, right? And it's like, it's this constant battle between like, you almost don't want to care because you start to feel really dejected, but then I can't help myself. And like the smallest thing goes right in the game and I'm right there and I'm like, we're going to fucking do it. And I'm all perked up and I'm like, all right. We're in there. We got to close. We got a double kill. Okay. And then it starts going bad again. And it's like, it's like, why did I get back in? But I mean, that's sports and that's fandom. And like, we've had tough times as LCS fans internationally a lot of times, right? We had the 0-10 week 2 years ago at Worlds and stuff. So, I'm not going to say that the hope is all completely gone because for me, it never will be. And also say that because the LCS often struggles internationally, when we do have those moments, for me, it's so exciting, right? Jokingly, we were talking a little bit about the play-in stuff, but like, is winning a BO5 in play-ins the biggest deal in the world? No, it's not in the grand scheme of things as far as Worlds, but like for me, that felt like winning Worlds, right? Like it felt so good. And because we don't usually win those matches, right? Like usually we lose the tiebreakers. EG won both their tiebreakers. Usually we're going to lose the BO5 against EU. We won the BO5. Like those moments feel so good. And we are removed from that, I know now, but it's so I'm going to be still cheering for the teams. I'm going to still be hopeful. I'm hoping that teams can pivot and can play with more confidence. Often, sadly, any teams play best after all the hope is gone. 100 Thieves last year. All right, you're out. Okay, now let's go beat EDG, who's going to win Worlds, right? It's almost always that thing where our teams, I think, play without fear once it no longer matters. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that we're still going to get wins. I'm hopeful that the teams can maybe turn something around. Do I think any of the teams are getting out of groups? No. I think it was really hard to get out of the groups, even starting on even keel. Yeah. And now we're down 3 games in every group. So no, I don't think any of our teams are going to get out, but I'm still going to be cheering. I'm still hopeful. And I'll be with them till the bitter end.
I appreciate your fandom. Yeah. Even if it means that every year we're at Worlds together, you're sitting in a hotel room with me, like sad. Just so
I've been sad a lot this year.
Dude, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I mean, what can I say? It's it's like, I love cheering for the LCS, man. Yeah. It's how it is. It's like, it's for all like all the things that people can talk about, it's like, that's how I grew up, right? Like I grew up watching sports. I was a Raptors fan literally since they came into the league. Not that I like knew what the hell was going on because I was a little kid when they came into the league, right? But they came into the league in the 90s. My dad watched basketball. So like I followed them for years. And for years and years and years, it's like they weren't that good. They were never really like going to win. And then a couple of years ago, they actually win the championship. And it was like the most mind-blowing feeling, right? Because I've been watching this team for like over 20 years, right? And so to me, like it's like the fact that LCS is doing poorly does not make me want to go like, you know what? Let's go. Like, I'm going to be an LPL fan. Like, I love watching Great League of Legends, and I'm happy to cheer for other teams and watch those teams and enjoy those games. But it would never be the same for me, to just be like, all right, I'm just going to go cheer for the best team and then watch them win. Like, I wouldn't have that same level of satisfaction.
It's so funny because as a kid, I always got like people would come and take me to Blazers games growing up, but they were bad when I was a kid. They were like cracked.
What sport is this?
This is basketball.
Oh, okay.
So this team like went through a period where like every one of their players was getting arrested. They're called the Jailblazers, and that was when I was watching this team, and I was like a kid. They're called Portland Trailblazers. They're called the Jailblazers because everyone was getting arrested, and they which were not. They weren't doing hot, and so I like did the exact opposite of what Isaac did, and just was like, I'm not gonna watch these guys anymore. And I feel like I was in NA. I left. I'm like, all right, I'm going to EU, and I feel like our childhood fandom reflects our career choices. Just go to this region. This region seems.
I mean, you've been with the LEC for so long, though.
To be fair, I was there for the G2 shit years. Like I was there for the bad years too.
Well, and it's like my point is not to say, oh, your fandom isn't real or anything. It's like you can cheer for whoever you want to cheer for. It's just like I'm ride or die with the LCS, man. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. Just thinking about like childhood basketball experiences and comparing them to current fandom. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, like people should cheer for whoever they're excited about. I think sticking with it through thick and thin though is part of what makes it an enjoyable process, even if like. Yeah, because if you're just jumping every time, it's cheap highs,
Yeah,
I was an EDG fan last year, and now let's see who gets out of groups, and then I'll decide. Yeah. Speaking of it, Rogue fan now.
Can we convert you to the church of the LEC?
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Once groups is over and like the death blow has been dealt.
I always want because I want Worlds to be competitive, right? I think it's way less interesting if it's just like, all right, LPL has the 4 best teams and top 4 is LPL, and like they just crap on everyone and you know how it's gonna end, right?
LPL
like
ultimate season.
Like I cheer for competitiveness and for competition between the regions. So like straight up, yeah, like when NA is not playing EU, like I'm always gonna cheer for NA then. But like when they're not, I want the LEC teams to do well because I think it's more exciting when there's other regions that are competitive, right? And I love seeing those upsets no matter who it comes from. It's the same reason that when Vietnam is playing, I'm cheering for them, and when CFO is playing, not against 100 Thieves, then I'm cheering for them, right? Like because I think it's fun to see the upsets. I think it's fun to see the excitement and the uncertainty of week one, like of Worlds, like of groups, is always what makes it the most magical time of Worlds for me. Like this is my favorite time, not this year, but in general, this is my favorite time,
Yeah. No, I agree completely. I think the thing that is nice about this tournament, even with NA's, unfortunate performances, is that like, and you've hit on this a little bit already, is that no one feels untouchable in the tournament so far. Like obviously,
except NA.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one can match us.
No one can tell the pariah. Just like don't go.
No one can lose 9 times in a row but us. Don't take that from me.
All right. You are in that case untouchable. You are unmatched. No one comes close to you.
It's like radiation poisoning. You don't really want to touch it, but it is untouchable.
I don't know, man.
Oh my god.
Don't want any of that. Anyway, I mean, you got you got Rogue, you got RNG, and you got JDG. But like, I feel like we could very easily see most of these teams, and probably will see most of these teams drop a game in the second week once there's been other teams.
I don't think there's ever been a team that's won Worlds that's not lost a game in group stage. I remember seeing the scores like 5-on, 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 4-2. A lot of these, I never really saw a 6-0. I remember Longshu went 6-0 in their group at Worlds, but then they got knocked out in the quarters of the semis. And that was
Didn't T1 have a run where they almost went like undefeated? I thought.
One of their early tournaments.
Yeah, one of the early tournaments.
Probably, yeah. I think I saw the post from like season 6, so maybe that was like a season.
Because their first world championship was like 3-0, 3-0, no?
Yeah, I can't remember. But yeah, generally people do drop games, right? Yeah. Like almost always. And I do think most teams will probably drop games, if not all. Yeah. It has looked very competitive. Like even it's like JDG is 3-0 while you literally almost lost to the 0-3 team in your group, EG, right? Like all these teams that are still at the top have had some close calls, I think. So I definitely think it's possible for everyone to drop games, but I mean, I think the interesting thing is more talking about like have your tournament favorites actually changed at all through this, right? Because we talked about the big 3 obviously coming in. Like who is your big 3 now? Like if you had to choose your 3 most likely teams to win Worlds, who is it now? Like did it actually change? Do you believe now that Rogue could actually win Worlds, or are you still just like, hey, you're pretty darn good, you're gonna make quarters? You know what I mean? Like that's where like it comes down to brass tacks, where you have to actually kind of decide.
Yeah. So I think in everyone's eyes, the big top 3 were always Top Esports, JDG, Gen.G.
Yep.
Because Top Esports, JDG are almost like sister teams now with how competitive they are against each other.
It was 10 games into best of 5s.
How close it is. For me, when I was looking at Worlds, I said a couple weeks ago, I think that Damwon RNG are the two teams which I think could actually contest the title, and are the two teams that people are like overlooking for contesting the world title. So those two would be in my wheelhouse right now after group stage still. The third team that I would add, I'm not sure, because Top Esports looks vulnerable. JDG, despite them being 3-0, all three of their games have been competitive to the point where it's losable.
Yeah.
You know, the EG game, very losable. The G2 game, they almost threw it all away. The Damwon game was really back and forth. So
that was a banger game.
That was a really good game. The mechanics, like watching...
That was my favorite game.
Watching players at the peak level of mechanics on their champions push it to the limit in fights to like the minute, like split second, like difference makers is just... It's the most fun thing to watch ever. Maybe I just nerd out when I watch it, but it's just so sick.
No. Yeah,
putting the third team in is quite difficult for me because Group A is so competitive and there's no favorite. I think Fnatic, T1, and EG are all tied. Group B, obviously JDG look slightly vulnerable, and the question is, do you put JDG in there?
So give me your top three now. Not adding in top three.
Just top three.
Because
top
you
three
said
for
it
the
was
tournament.
Gen.G, JDG, and top. So,
my top three would be RNG, Damwon, JDG, I think.
Okay, so both top and Gen.G have been knocked out.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. I just lose faith in... Top Esports is 1-2 right now. They lost to DRX and Rogue, right?
Yep.
This team just doesn't look very competitive. Like Wayward domestically was quite a strong top laner. Like he was not contesting the likes of 369, but he
could neutralize or not get gapped.
Neutralize is a good word because I think his most played was Gnar, and that's how he used his play to neutralize enemy top laners. He was always like the new kid on the block, joking around, like spamming emotes every time he kills you, or spamming emotes every time he dodges skill shots. But that didn't look like Wayward Gnar in their game against Rogue.
He was 0-6?
Yeah, he was really underperforming, and he made so many like random mistakes. And I don't want to say he was choking or he was nervous, but just watching you can tell by the way a player is playing to the point where they're playing defensive, but then they over-aggressive in one play or one fight, which is just an overextension that feels like it's over-forced. And that's how you can kind of judge how they're feeling as a player. And I think Wayward was really uncomfortable. And they didn't strike me like the top esports from the LPL. Maybe we looked at the JDG top esports series and we were like, wow, these teams are both like S+ tier. But then coming into it, maybe they're just not that high as we thought. Or like the difference between them and top teams from other regions wasn't that big.
It's also, you never know. There's so many intangibles when it comes to the time between your playoffs patch and Worlds. There's patch changes.
Patch changes are big.
Going to another country. There's playing in another country, playing on a stage that isn't as a home crowd. And there, to be fair, there are a lot of LPL fans here, but you never know what that big shift is going to be. Because I still feel like I look at JDG to be fantastic. You know what I mean? I think the one that I feel like Gen.G still has to be in the discussion because that loss, like that draft was bad. Like that random ass Singe pick was bad. And this team is still individually incredible. I have concerns about Doran if you want to stack them up against like the other potential frontrunners for
clapped by someday even.
Yeah. And I think some of that is that I think that a lot of the Aatrox counters just don't feel real to me. Like they just, and credit to Someday, he did play fantastically. But I feel like I'm not ready to count Gen.G out of my top three yet. Definitely Gen.G, definitely JDG. Third one is hard. I think partially because like you highlighted, Group A feels so uncertain. I really liked what we saw from EDG specifically against Fnatic. I'm liking Flandre on Gragas. Flandre Gragas just did it for me. That like got me fired up.
Something about that belly.
Dude,
something about that belly, boy.
Europe with it, bro. You can't like it.
No,
You gotta be.
Wonder literally never procced a brittle proc. He just got belly bombed. He put his hands up, and Flandre was like,
dude,
no.
The Gragas ults in those fights, when you're playing a front-to-back comp, Gragas is so good against front-to-back because you just sit in a bush on a pinko and they contest midwave. You just throw your ult randomly, see if you hit a frontliner, chunk out the front, and then you can start to move up. So that Gragas pick was actually pretty big.
I feel good about JDG. I feel good about Gen.G. RNG is the other one that feels really strong to me, but it's hard for me to know, again, because I think that the struggle of this group specifically is that like that first Gen.G game just felt like bad data. You know what I mean? Because the draft felt so bad. The game felt so lost so soon. So I want to see more from RNG before I have like full faith in RNG. But
I don't know.
Ming's looking good. And I really love when a support player is looking good on an international stage in a meta where once Yumi's banned, we get to play real champions. Like that feels
I don't know if
great to
you
me.
agree with my take on Gen.G, but I look at their game against, for example, 100 Thieves, where Doran's getting quote-unquote smashed. They're able to cross-map really easily topside. Their bot advantage was decent, but not to the point where like FBI was that far behind. I think he caught up in CS quite easily, and he was matching 2 items against Ruler. And then they were in a mid-game situation where 100 Thieves were even in gold and able to contest the Drake, but then they got TP flanked on in their bot jungle, and then I think they got caught out of position, like who he just overforced. And that's why I think 100 Thieves made like a critical error to make it so Gen G would win that game.
Yep.
Similarly, against Flying Oysters, they drafted this super early game comp. They played like Syndra, Kalista, I can't remember the exact champs, but they went Renekton, like full all-in win in.
Lee Sin, Syndra, Renekton, Kalista, Pike.
Yeah.
And when Gen G got this bot dive off and they double killed the enemy bot lane with a better comp in scaling, I thought it was over.
Yeah, it
but
was
the
actually
game
over.
just turned into like madness to the point where Oysters were almost able to flip Barons. The game just looked so messy and
close.
When I think of LCK teams and I think of Gen G, I do not think of messy. I think of like slow, progressive, calculated like offensive moves to get your team ahead, and then just choking the enemy team out. I never really expected Gen G to have games where they devolve into like that kind of madness, or a game against 100 Thieves where you have such a good, strong early bot lead, but then you just slow the game down to the point where enemy AD can catch up, enemy top is ahead, and now you're even in fights. So that's why I feel like my trust in Gen G is kind of faltered, because if you watch their finals, top was in just pure isolation, and their mid bot side was just ahead to the point where you get to a dragon fight, they're 1 or 2k up, and their dragon fight execution is just flawless.
Yeah.
And then from that point onwards, they're untouchable. They won't make a macro mistake. Like they'll play on 2 lanes no matter what. And Doran will just be like weak side-ish, never really getting that much resources from Peanuts. So I never really... I looked at the finals, I thought Gen G would be a bit stronger than they are right now.
Me too. I'm not ready to count Gen G out though.
No, definitely not.
I think my top 3 would be JDG. I still have in there. I think Gen G, and I don't know if this seems funny, but like I think I put Damwon in instead of RNG because I still have a tremendous amount of faith in JDG. And I felt Damwon, like if I'm putting them in there, Damwon were like at that level. Like that was like the best game I thought we would really like kind of seen. I feel like Damwon can be extremely competitive. I feel like the meta fits them really, really well. Yeah. So I do have a lot of faith in them. So the only team I would have really have kind of like seen enough that I'm like, okay, I'm willing to drop you out as top. But the funny thing about top is that like you can talk about like, oh, maybe the meta has changed or this or that or the other thing, but like I watched probably 30 games of top this year, like between like all their playoff run and everything, and I watched a fair bit of the regular season, and like I feel like top was the team that I like, even though I had them in my top 3 going in, I'm like, I could see them winning Worlds. But also, if you told me that you were a time traveler and Jackie Love ran it down 5 games in a row and they got knocked out in groups, I would believe you, right? Like, so like
Jackie Love against Rogue was making some really weird positionings.
So I mean, like as much as I'm like, oh my god, how is top losing 2 games? I'm also like, no, that tracks.
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of funny though how we bring top into discussion and all of us have similar-ish picks, right? You have the Gen G, you have the Damwon, but none of us talking about Rogue, you know? And Rogue looked really convincing. Yeah. And it's so hard to believe in.
It is pretty funny
Rogue,
with 2
right?
LEC representatives here.
Yeah.
That neither of you have any euphoria.
It's interesting how like we put our top 3, but we don't even add the discussion or the argument to have like Rogue in screeching top 4 or top 5 in a sense, because like it's so hard to believe in them, but they're doing so well. But I feel like when I start believing in them, they're going to start doing badly. And I'm not
like psyching myself out as like a mental game thing to avoid jinxing them. I'm not that superstitious. I think the struggle is,
I'm on the same wavelength to you, right? I'm not saying that we should have done it. Because I agree, they're not in my top 3 either. But like they convincingly beat top. They convincingly beat DRX, who were flawless in play-ins.
In 2019, when G2 beat T1 in that best of 5, I would not have predicted G2 going to that best of 5. I wouldn't have.
You thought they would get knocked out by like Damwon before?
No, I thought that they would. I thought they'd get knocked out by T1 in that best of 5. I am a person who's like perpetually on the pessimistic side because like if I haven't seen it before, wouldn't believe it's possible. Now every G2 best of 5 after that, I'm like willing to consider the possibility. But it's like I think for Rogue, it almost feels like in my eyes when it comes to international competition for the West, there's this like tier of competitiveness that you have to unlock by like until you beat, you know, an LCK team or an LPL team in a best of 5. I like don't put it on a thing that you have in your like character sheet. Like it's just not on the cards for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that is unfair to Rogue because they have played so incredibly well.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing to me is it's not like they've done one thing every single game. And the top esports game was fantastic for them on so many levels. The fact that Malrang has shown us his Jarvan, that it has remained ban worthy is like, okay, great. So now we know that what they're doing domestically is transitioning to an international stage. Sick. The fact that he played Lee Sin is like the number one champion that if Malrang had picked it domestically, I would have been like, oh my God, what are they doing? Because it's like, has to impact early game, which Malrang very active in ganks, but oftentimes it's just like super feast or famine, fall behind. And this is a champion that in the hands of someone who isn't executing on it flawlessly looks like piss useless late game. Like so bad. But he was great. He landed that excellent kick. He was clean across the fights. It was, and they keep impressing me every time I want to doubt them or give a reason to count them out. I feel like within the next 5 games, they've proven that they can do the thing that I don't think they can do.
How have you felt about like their priority on Kalista and whatnot? Because it doesn't feel like it's as popular, but they've done 2 Kalista games, one Lucian Nami game.
Yeah.
So it's been like a lot of like early game stuff for comp, which I can't say I super expected. I will say like I've been impressed with how they've like pulled it back in some of the later stage games. Like, because I keep feeling like, okay, Kalista, they're kind of going late. Like the GAM one was like, felt like the most sketchy game actually.
Yeah.
The GAM one felt like they were maybe going to start losing. Like it started feeling like, okay, you're kind of getting in the later stages. Maybe it's not going to really work out.
That was where they slowed the game down way too much, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And they had, did they lose a bear? And there was like something that went, there was one moment I remember that went like really bad and it started feeling like, okay, maybe they've actually lost the game. And then they were able to pull it back, obviously. But it started getting really, really competitive. And I was a little bit surprised, like coming from playoffs and stuff, I thought they were going to have like priority on like Caitlyn and like a lot more scaling stuff. And like it has been all about like early game for bot lane. And I think that has been totally fine because obviously they're playing like a lot of scaling in their solo lanes, right? Like they're doing like, you know, Auto Omne and Maokai, and they're doing like Azirs and Victors and so on and stuff mid lane. So I'm just kind of curious how you feel about the prio on early game ADCs.
I think that's the exact formula that they got ever since they won against Fnatic in the semis and coming into the finals. And given the meta of like Sejuani or and Maokai being like top tier top lane picks, I don't think Odoamne ever struck me as like the carry player. He's never really like the he will pick Jace and he will 1v9 on side. Maybe he'll pick things like Kennen for teamfight or something like that along those lines, but he will lean more so to top champions, which is kind of like Europe in a nutshell. I feel like barring Broken Blade and Alphari, our domestic league was very top centric in terms of just tanks and then
also
mid bot focus.
Yeah, I also think that like overall, like that's generally what we've seen most of our success on. And even Broken Blade when G2 were winning in spring, it was all Ornn. You know what I mean? Like I think EU teams have looked their best
was
when
the spring run, right?
Yeah, when top laners are playing engage tanks, basically.
And basically what happened in that semifinals against Fnatic was Humanoid has game 1, Sylas pops the hell off. And then all of a sudden we had like a mage meta for 3 games, whereas Victor Oriana, Victor Azir, and just matching each other. And that's where Rogue just stuck with that formula from that point onwards, and it works for them. So they have mage mid, early game bot, tank top, early game jungle, play mid bot side, happy days. And they've just come to Worlds and done the exact same thing. And I thought Lucian Nami would be something that's dropped. Apparently not. European teams still think it's really viable. Kalista is their really high prio. But I think that what I will say about Rogue and European teams is I think they're quite easy to read, to be honest. I think their 1-2s will always be Azir, Kalista, or their earlier, like 3-pick, Ornn will probably be in there somewhere, Renata is in there. Like their pool of champions is quite obvious. And I wonder if that's going to be exposed in the next group stage.
And I think G2's kind of excluded from that, but like Fnatic and Rogue feel like the same team in terms of draft structurally. Like there's some niche picks, but it's the Azir in the mid lane, some early game bot lane to bridge the gap, you know, into the mid game. And like I like it. It feels very clean.
Poppy Jarvan.
And I think it can probably get EU through the rest of the group stage, but I do worry as we get further. Because I don't, and it's not just like in general, Kalista is a champion to me that feels like the better your opponent is, the harder it is to just get a ton of value out of her because she demands that you do something really good early game. And to be fair, regular season, comp, Kalista King, playoffs, comp, you know, like great, Lucian, Kalista, like they're getting better and better on that stuff. But when I look at like the quality of like just like Aphelios players across the board that you're going to be running into in best of fives, I get more and more concerned because I think that the execution has to stay at a high level and probably even get better to justify that pick. And also because we haven't seen them play, and again, this is mostly Fnatic and Rogue at this point because G2 are in their own little world of like crazy drafting. Because we haven't seen them play to top side, like when the draft forces them down that road, and I think that it probably inevitably will at some point, like that's if they can check that off before the end of groups and show us that they can play around topside or that they can mix it up a little bit and play an Aatrox when it's open instead of just taking the Azir and giving away the Aatrox if that's what it comes down to, like that would help instill a lot of faith for me for both Fnatic and Rogue because I do worry about teams who are like strong enough on the top side of the map to just blow you up or match you on the bottom or play something to match you on the bottom side. Like, because that's something we haven't seen as much of. Usually they're getting advantage in draft for bot side, even if late game they're going to get outscaled.
I mean, we've been seeing like Yumi Sivir is undefeated. It's 4-0. Viper Hope, Jackie Love, Gumayushi played it. So like obviously all good teams played it, right?
Yeah.
But it actually looked really good in every game that it was played, right?
Yep.
You know, and I think that there's been a lot of champions that, you know, we can kind of move into a bit of a meta discussion if you guys want.
Sure.
A lot of champions that people were expecting to just be like gone that are clearly not gone. Lucian Nami clearly not gone. Poppy not gone. Sivir Yumi clearly not gone.
Thank God Zeri's gone though.
Zeri is actually dead.
Thank God.
Yeah, I was pretty tired of it. So like there's a lot of champions that are like we're expected to be out of the meta that I feel like are being almost like they're so not out of the meta. Like they look really, really strong. I feel like they're still being under prioritized though, because people haven't really readjusted to their expectations of some of this. Like I feel like based on the games that I've been seeing Sivir Yumi, I feel like we should be seeing a lot more of Sivir and Yumi, to be honest, which isn't maybe the most exciting thing to ask for, but it's like every single game it has come out, it has been dominated by that pick. They have not been getting really bullied in lanes pretty much at all. You know, a lot of people that I had talked to and my expectations were that if people are slapping down Yumis, that it's going to get slammed by like Caitlyn and Lux and these kind of double range bot lanes and stuff. And Karma, like Karma Ezreal was another one that a lot of people were worried about because against double range where you have like an ADC plus an enchanter, generally Yumi can't actually auto without just getting slammed in the trades, right? So Yumi needs to be able to actually pop off and use the passive or you just go and your trading is horrible. But no one has really been punishing it very heavily. And I know it's kind of like almost a meme, but like everyone's always surprised by Yumi's damage. But Yumi is going to be Luden's Q max every time now. And Yumi does real damage. Like it is actually crazy how much damage you do later on in the game.
I saw JDG or something like the highest damage is their support or something. JDG, I think it was.
Some of those Yumi games are absolutely nuts in terms of just raw damage output. Medic was tweeting about like the damage to gold ratio is crazy because she just like does so much damage with so effectively so little money compared to any other role. And obviously buffs a lot of stats. I think the big issue that I have, maybe not issue, but the reason that I think like I agree with you completely. I think more often than not, Caitlyn is banned anyway. And to be fair, more often than not, Yumi is banned. But when that's through, you should be grabbing it every time because my thing is if we ignore the level 1 from the Fnatic EDG game and just see how that game can play out, there's so much pressure on Fnatic to build a sizable lane advantage because Sivir just inevitably hits a threshold, and especially against Kalista, where she just one-shots the wave and leaves. And Kalista just, once she hits that point, Kalista never gets to just sit there with the Sivir ever again. And this is the thing that I think makes Sivir so especially frustrating, is it's like her wave clear, one item and onward, is just so accessible, especially when you have the Yumi to just give you those extra AD stats, that like, you just don't get a chance to interact with her again until team fights. And she's just so much more relevant than you at that point anyway. She's just so annoying to deal with.
One tiny thing. It's only 4 games, but plus 22.5 CSD at 15, plus 1758 gold at 15 is the Sivir stats from 4 games.
All right. The upset game is in there and they got absolutely hard blasted.
It's only 4 games. And
I know.
really
I'm just saying that like I'm pretty sure if you chalk that out, it'll be like reasonable CS numbers and then one like plus 50 from the EDG game.
It's just
you know
funny,
what I mean?
Right? It's just funny. It's like this terrible early game champion. If you can barely scrape by, you can be good late.
No, I was just thinking about it while you're having a discussion about like regional or like different regions priorities. And I remember there was 2 games specifically between an LPR and LCK team against the Western team where they were banning Viego on blue side. And I was just like, why are they banning Viego on blue side? These Eastern teams think it's just broken or something.
Yeah.
But if you look at the meta, it's like Renekton, Viego, Aphelios seem to be like, and Kai'Sa seem to be like the Eastern read of how these champions function. And these are like the strongest champions. EU seems to think like Lucian Nami's OP, Ornn and tanks like this. And early game junglers are still the go-to. NA has like this. Control mage mid. NA has like this Fiora idea that it
Fiora
MF
early game focus,
and it just seems odd as well. So you've got like these 3 different meta reads coming in, because I looked at this LPL or LCK team and they're banning things like Viego on blue side, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, what happens if you go against Rogue and you ban things like Maokai, Azir, Kalista, right? And you just dare them to say, okay, let's leave Caitlyn open, go and play it. Okay, we'll go and play Aatrox. Well, I'll play my Jackson to it or something. Like the Eastern teams, they just take your foundation of champs away. So now you're on A tier champs rather than S tier, right? Instead of playing Maokai, maybe
Play
play
Ornn.
things like Ornn.
Yeah.
Instead of playing like the Kalista, you have to play like the Lucian Nami or something
Ornn,
like this.
Victor,
No
Lucian,
Azir,
Nami.
you have to play Victor. How does the game look? I wonder, and how the LPL teams like dissect the European meta, which I think is the easiest to target because the LPL meta is more carry top focused. We've seen
Yeah.
Jace, we've seen Renekton from Nuguri, for example. 369 is also on that train. So I feel like they're playing things like Jax blind, Renekton blind, Camille, Jace. It's a bit harder to deal with because you need a lot more of a skill expression if you want to match top lane, right? And you want to play Jax into Camille or you want to play Fiora into Camille. So it's a lot harder to figure out what to do as the Western team, and the Eastern teams have a lot more of a better idea in terms of like just out skill expression.
Yeah.
I feel like drafts can be quite targeted, and just like it's interesting how the different regions have different reads.
I disagree a bit. Just sorry, can't even keep a straight face. I wouldn't say it's hardest to target. Easiest to target EU because you can target NA by just leaving whatever they want to pick up.
I was wondering why you were laughing and disagreeing. I was like,
you mean we shouldn't ban the Nidalee?
You just leave the Fiora and Nidalee MF up.
let them have the set
and Tom
Nidalee.
Kench too.
It's
We
an
can just
easy,
pair it
it's
all
an
together.
easy target. Yeah, would have been so good if I
What
could
if you
have
just
not
play
laughed.
blind pick?
But I was, yeah,
You couldn't keep a straight
You just
face.
leave it blind pick. Yeah, because I really wanted, like, as soon as I really agree. You're like,
No, it's because you're like, I really disagree.
Yeah.
I was just like, what is he?
Is he okay? No, I'm not okay. No.
I think the thing that remains to be seen past if anyone's going to ban Nidalee or whatever is I want to see more from Larson specifically as we go later in the pool on that subject, because I think Azir and Victor always feels good when you're like, Azir feels amazing, and then like the rest of the controlled mages feel fine in the context.
It's because Azir has playmaking, right?
Playing Azir.
That's what I was going to say.
Azir
That's
has
the biggest drop off.
Mobility, he's got playmaking. When you're forced onto the Victor and the enemy gets to play not Azir, and it's not just Victor Azir, and Orianna is now eliminated, which is its own
I think
problem.
that hurts Larson.
It hurts Larson and it hurts the draft, because I'm curious, because I look at Shahu playing this Lissandra, and I see RNG as like almost just a very different team. They're playing Lissandra and they're playing these aggressive junglers, whether it's the Graves, whether it's the Viego, and I wonder how Rogue will match up against a team that's willing to play like that specifically if Azir is taken off the table.
The reason I think it's reason I think it's easily targetable and EU might suffer a bit is because the LPL team can do one of two things. One, they can play the carries into you, right? And if it doesn't work, then they'll just play your style against you. So the Rogue would find it a little bit harder for have Odoamne to play like Camille into Jace.
Yeah. You can't do both sides.
Exactly. Executing the harder version of a draft is not something that Europe will do. They'll always stick with that one plan, whereas the LPL can fish out a best of 5, play the carry matchup, see if it works, and then if not, match Gragas into Ornn, and then just match you with control mages with like Knight or whoever it is, Victor versus Azir, and see how they perform.
I think that the biggest drop off between like S tier and A tier within like a section, it really is control mages, because I do think that Azir to Victor is a massive drop off, not only because of the playmaking, but also because you're so gankable comparatively,
100%.
right? It is so much easier to actually pressure a Victor. If you get an early gank, like if you path through mid early, you force a flash or whatever, like if you're talking about playing against the Lissandra style, like it is actually really scary playing early ganking jungler plus Lissandra or whatever as Victor. It is so easy to force flash. Like you need to be able to have your team there, then getting you vision on both sides. You need to be covered at all times. Otherwise, Victor can't walk up. Where Azir, you just hold one charge of your soldier at all times, and you can always EQ backwards.
I think the best example of that is Gam Esports Catty. I think it was against Rogue. He got ganked like 4 or 5 times, and he was like 0-3-0 or 0-4-0 on the Victor. But the game slowed down so much by Rogue that he actually got to the point where he was at 3 items to match the enemy control mage. So that's when the Victor is like back
really
in
strong.
the game.
Yeah, I think the Victor only ever, like the moments where Victor has felt best has almost exclusively been against Kalista, where he's just ults a Kalista in a mid to late game fight, and she literally she's too short range. She cannot play a fight. She just has to back away from the ult or die, and like those are the only times where I'm like, wow, Victor looks better than Azir. It's just like in that single context where the enemy carries are so short range that they just like have to leave the fight basically rather than walk into his ult. Like that's about it. Because I think it's just Azir does functionally all the same things, controls space super well, but also has mobility, and that's all it takes.
Even like you look at, you talk about zoning out with the ult and stuff. It's like some of these flat pen Azir builds, like when Azir is going like Comet, Luden, Shadowflame, with Sork boots, and it's like you queue a Sivir and you auto once or twice, they lose 80% of their health.
Humanoid onto Viper,
right?
That's true. It's
Almost
true.
one shot.
Like it was literally, I think, Q plus 1 auto, or maybe it was 2 autos. I think
It was 2 autos with 2 soldiers. I think just like auto.
Yeah.
Both soldiers just hit. And it was like What?
But it's like you're just so outranged in those situations. So like I do agree. Like I mean, Victor is a nuts late game. It's just early game you are more exploitable, and the LPL teams are really good at punishing some of those windows. And that's always been the region I think is so consistent about. It's like your summoner's down, oh, you're going to die. You know, like their teams I think are very, very good about playing around missing resources and really attacking people who have that vulnerability. Like if you do misuse a resource or you don't have vision or you do spend your flash or whatever, you often are going to pay for it.
Yep. Shout out to Azir. He just gets to do everything.
Shout out to my boy Azir.
Shout out to my boy Azir.
Holding it down for Shurima.
He just gets to be a little baby Lee Sin mid lane at level 6 till he has 2 items, and then he just gets to be a hyper carry. He's just like living the dream.
He's so strong. Even got nerfed a little bit, I think, as well. I wonder if he's... don't think people like over exaggerated that Azir is dead, you know, but he did get hit and he's still like S+ tier in
he's just
competitive
insane.
play.
If he's ever viable, he's so good. His kid is just so damn good.
I feel bad for the balance team sometimes because there's champs in pro play which are just absolutely absurdly broken. But in solo queue, they're like 40% win rate. And it's like, so what are we supposed to nerf it harder?
That's the Sejuani problem, bro.
Rise problem, the Zeri problem, the Syndra problem. Like these champs were so low win rate in solo queue and like high reload, but in pro play, they're like S+ first pick champs.
I feel like it just has to be accepted that some champions are just only for like incredibly skilled players or you're at a disadvantage, right? And I honestly think that's okay. Like I think it's okay for there to be a group of champions that are just permanently lower win rate in solo queue. But if you're amazing at it, it's an amazing champion, right? And then inversely, I think it's also okay for there to be champions like, you know, Nasus and Garen and whatever that are like permanently 53%, 54% win rate and stuff like that in solo queue or whatever. Like, and we'll never see a game of pro, right? I think that's fine. I have no problems with that.
Here's the take. It's not very hot because I think you agree.
This is a room temperature take from Cage Roll.
The room's pretty warm though right now, so
yeah, it's pretty warm. Most exciting Worlds meta ever this year. Now, the only argument I have is 2019.
I was gonna say 2019
first
is
pick Irelia Akali.
Yeah. What about the Arden Sensor meta?
Do not speak.
Okay,
do not speak.
It's on par, if not slightly below 2019 meta.
I think the thing is that this meta is super diverse, and in terms of draft, I think this meta is like absolutely nutso.
It's crazy.
It's like really cool what people can do
champs
creatively.
Already out of like
it's just hard to match.
I don't know how many.
It's hard to match the spectator appeal of 2019 because like watching Akali versus Sylas versus Irelia every single
Aatrox,
game,
Jace,
triple quad,
Kai'Sa,
it's just like how many flex picks can you get in your first 3 and where can you put them? That was great. Was it? That one's still my favorite. This is close second though because like I actually really like the meta diversity. And on that subject, like
we're at 161 champions in the league now, by the way.
Damn. Getting bigger every year. What do you guys feel like is has been like the pick of the tournament so far? What is like we talked a lot about Azir. I feel like he's got to be on the short list.
The best, it's Maokai.
The best, you think the best pick in this tournament is Maokai?
Yeah, easily. I think this champ is just so brokenly over. Like you can flex this champ top jungle support. You can probably play Senna Maokai if you want as well. And we've seen Hilly play at support. We've seen Odo play at top. We've seen lots of junglers play it in jungle. The only team that I don't think plays Maokai is JDG because Kanavi is just the carry king. But I think this champ just provides so much to your team in terms of utility that it's just absurdly strong and also gives you good early games if he's in jungle and his clear speed's actually not too shabby.
I think Maokai's up there. I think Azir's up there. I'm gonna say I feel like Aphelios has been incredibly good. Aphelios I feel like has been somewhat underrated. It has looked good in like almost every game. I feel like I've seen it. It has like a 70% win rate. It's the second most picked champion at Worlds with a 70% win rate, which I found a little bit surprising. Yeah, Yuumi and Sivir have only been picked together, but they have a 100% win rate, both 4 and 0. So those have been doing really well. There's a few champions that I'd say I'm surprised by. Partially it is just because of like who's playing them. Like Rel is 4 and 1, right? Like who would have thought that Rel would be kind of doing as well? But then you look and it's like, okay, missing Beryl, Targamas has a game, Qual has a game. I guess the Qual game, but it's like, people are doing quite well with some of these picks that I don't think were as much on people's radar.
Yeah, I think Aphelios is a super good call out. I feel like he's probably best in role outside of maybe Caitlyn, who's like permabanned. I just haven't seen enough Caitlyn to have a strong enough opinion. But she's also one of those champions where I feel like kind of similar to about Kalista, where like you really need to do something specific to maximize the value of the champion. Where I feel like Aphelios is just always
just
good.
chilling, just
he's always good. He's got gank. He's got good, excellent gank setup on his own, right? Which pairs doubly well when he's got any kind of follow up. That's why I love the Thresh lane, especially. Is you just like you can actually hit a hook in a Thresh lane when Aphelios sets you up, even if it's just with the slow. And you know I'm gonna nerd out.
Dracos is always perks
a lot
up
of
when he
very
hears
good
Aphelios.
Aphelioses. The other thing that I think is like really annoying about this champion, specifically in the context of pro play, is how quickly he takes towers, because it always feels like Herald is such a good deal these days, and I think even Aphelios can't match that, but he can at least like contest it a little bit.
Light gun.
Whereas like Klissa's not taking a tower. Like none of the other champions in this meta can take a tower. Like Tristana, I guess if Tristana becomes a bigger presence, Jinx is essentially non-existent. So, but those are the only other two that can really do it. So I think Aphelios is a good call out. I still think it's probably Maokai. Aatrox deserves recognition, but again, isn't so like Wampa Stampa OP when we've seen him. Just clearly better, clearly like best in class, but not like unstoppable, unbeatable.
It's also like the picks and bans basically are flipped from play-ins to like, you know, it's like in play-ins it was like, you know, say 17 picks and seven bans or whatever. It's basically the inverse now, where it's mostly just getting banned. It's not actually getting through that much anymore.
Yeah. So I think Maokai, I think the big thing about Maokai and Ornn, and I think that this is what's going to make them good forever, as long as they're semi-viable at all. Maokai doubly more increasingly viable because of his flexibility and roles, but like the fact that there are two tanks in this game who can just throw an ult out and just like not have to commit their body to the fight is so annoying. Every other tank in the game is like, oh, I got to be in there.
And they can be on the same
I have
team.
to risk my life. You know, I have to leap in face first.
Style.
And if I make the wrong call, I die. Maokai, all right, trees go. Let's see what happens. You know, light them up. You know, Ornn, just blow the horn. Like, get in there. Like, why are we allowing tanks like this to exist in the game?
Malphite has to fucking football tackle his ass in the middle of the
Yeah,
team.
and if
Sion has to steam train their heads.
Yeah, steam train their heads, and they like if they flash, dash, slide, step slightly to the right.
Part 2, accepting
you know,
death.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you do nothing. These guys are like, let's see what happens. All right, we're taking the fight. You know,
Yeah.
or like
It's
no.
kind of true, actually. They're just engaging from fucking Narnia.
Yeah.
These
I mean, the
champs with
sapling
range.
utility, obviously good. The flexibility is what pushes Maokai over Ornn in that capacity. But I just think tanks you can just engage without having to commit anything past a very low cooldown ultimate in late game is like...
Jarvan literally locks himself in an octagon with you. He's like full fist
We fight.
mode.
Yeah, like it's just doesn't seem fair. That's all I'll say.
Saplings are actually so broken though. It's
So
actually
insane.
crazy. Yeah, it's like you just put 1 point in it, right?
It's a
And
ward.
it's fucking a 4-second cooldown because you have 1,000 CDR, and you just every like you don't have to mark any flank because every flank is marked by a stupid
yeah.
little sapling, and it doesn't even just spot them; it slows them and everything too.
Yeah.
Did you ever play against Maokai supports with that rune like Sorcerer's Touch or something that like burns your HP?
Deathfire
and he has
Touch
Deathfire
or-
Touch, and he has
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Angeries,
yeah.
and you're just walking around into these bushes, just burning to death from these saplings. I hated that meta.
So this rework, I think, obviously, like successful in terms of, I think Maokai clearly looks like a lot more fun to play. But I'm just also very glad that at least they did take out the stupid like max health damage saplings. Like imagine those were still in the game.
You're just getting 1D.
Just getting just the full tank top lane Maokai. You like roam up as a
Just a
jungler.
nuke.
Just done the little space Maokai with the little Martian.
When you
just
stack like 6 saplings in a
just
bush.
wobbles its ass over to you and does 70% of your health.
Just these little Sabermen just running over, just rolling up on you. Your ass.
That's where you bring out the Gragas Maokai duo, just stack the saplings in the brush, and they just Gragas ult them into the bush and they get one shot.
I'm just saying it could happen.
You know, Dracos goes full American when he keeps saying the word ass. Look at his stupid ass.
I can't help it, bro. All I can see is just walking a little Krillin walking to top lane, just these green motherfuckers coming
Yeah.
out of the bush, just jumping on him. That's it. Go next.
Baby cells.
I mean, the good news is there's a lot of good picks this tournament. There's a lot of picks that are exciting.
But the
there's
worst pick.
the worst. What is the worst pick in the tournament? Do you want to go first? Because I think Isaac and I might have the same worst pick because maybe we're mind melding.
Tournament.
What is like the most disappointing? Don't pick anything that's been picked once. That would be the only rule.
If it was just picked once, I'd just say Nidalee. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry.
Absolute
I'm right there
garbage.
with you. Well, I mean, was that the pick or was that the play or was that both?
Both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Together.
It was probably both. The most disappointing pick of the tournament. I don't know. How's Renekton doing? Because I feel like Nukuri just went 0-4-0. 369.
1-2, I think.
369 had against Oren. Then Flying Oysters played it as well. I don't know. I
It
kind of
looked
want to
pretty good in the Flying Oyster game. I will
Okay,
say.
do you want to think about
I
it?
kind of want to lean to.
You can think of-
so my current one that I'm thinking of is Jax
Okay.
because of how underwhelming it is against the Aatrox matchup, and then how useless it seems to be in fights. But I think RNG's Jax looks good,
Yeah.
but that's my only pitch right now in terms of like.
If only
Decent
Breathe
amount of
looks good
gameplay.
on Jax, that's a dog shit champion. Let's be honest here. Like, if,
Well, there's no Arleth.
if that's the bar, it's like, well, if you're literally the best in the world at it, you might be able to win a game or two. You know, like.
You got me there, buddy.
Yeah.
But everyone else seems to think they can do it too.
Yeah.
And it ain't working. So yeah, I'll think about it. But that's my current pitch.
I'm gonna. So I think I know what you're gonna say. So I'm gonna say a different one. I'm gonna say MF.
Ooh,
So
that was
MF?
my backup in case you said the one I thought you
Okay,
were going
so
to say.
so you have the main one then.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
what you're gonna say. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going MF because I think from where the expectation was to where the reality is has been so disappointing.
Yeah.
Priority has completely dropped off, but also it has just looked pretty trash in every game that it's been played.
Yep.
Yes, it was a lot of LCS games, but just in general, people coming into this event, I think were so high on MF. As just a pick in general, it was crushing in solo queue, it was super high
it
win
was
rate.
so powerful, it was so strong in solo queue.
Tons of pros I talked to were like, MF pick ban guaranteed. It's gonna be like, it's gonna be really good at Worlds and stuff. So I think that one, and then I'll give you a 2-for-1 combo. I think Varus has also been pretty garbage. Varus has yet to get a win. Also,
I only remember the Jackie Love game. Who else played Varus?
Played Varus.
I can pull. I
Gets
can
banned a lot too, to be fair.
I can pull it up.
Yeah, I remember.
Let's see. Varus is 0-5.
Okay.
We have Duckdom, Cowrie,
Duckdom, JDG.
Style, Jackie Love
Okay.
that have all played it.
Yeah.
And the only game I can remember that was like not doing too bad was the Duck Dome game.
Yeah. They were carrying and Nuguri was just like running it, right?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Varus Renata, right? I think. Yeah.
I will say I think that Varus is not nearly as bad as MF. MF has been
MF is for sure.
MF is a
bad
massive
voice,
disappointment.
yeah.
Just like the amount of, and again, like maybe we'd feel differently, but I feel like the fact that the top 80s in the tournament aren't prioritizing it also is pretty indicative that it's not as good. Feels so easy to cancel the alt, to walk out of the alt, the amount of champions that could just
The
quick
pillar.
dash to the side, the pillar, the endless pillars to just instantly cancel an MF alt. It feels,
Trundle, Braum, Ornn, Nami.
like
There's so many answers.
yeah, there just feels like I can't. It's hard to think of a team comp in the meta that can't just instantly cancel MF alt. You know what I mean? Like,
And you can't kill frontline at all.
no, and that's a really big problem, especially given the prevalence. So like, we're seeing Maokai Sejuani very often like handshake banned every single draft,
Yeah.
and like despite that, there's still Ornn and Poppy nearly in every game. You know what I mean? So there's just, it feels impossible to get value out of that pick on paper and in solo queue. I think it's still probably really strong, but like it just seems so hard. I give Varus a little bit more the benefit of the doubt. I think that we'll see as the tournament goes on, but with the evidence that we have, I can't dispute that it has looked awful.
It's only been banned 4 times, by the way.
Yeah, there was just a few games where it was banned. I think phase 1 specifically.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
feel like there's maybe something that's happening in scrims that we haven't seen manifest on stage yet. My pick, which I think might have been Isaac's pick, although there's, now that I'm looking at this, there's actually a lot of champions I think have been bad. But I hate Fiora.
That was
I
my
hate,
pick.
yeah, okay. I was gonna say it was that or Talia. I hate Fiora, man. I get it conceptually. I watched you play a million Aatrox games into Fiora when you're getting coached by that Aatrox one trick, and despite that,
I was clapping them by the end.
no, you weren't.
No,
you were 1. You were 10-0 or
Aatrox is
0-10.
pretty good.
I just like I really hate champions in top lane that don't have reliable CC immensely, and I feel like Fiora is, unless you're like absolutely solo queue-esque raffle stomping your lane, she just feels like she offers so very little. Every single game is a Dragon Soul. Every single game is Baron fights. And I just think she doesn't bring a lot. And despite that, she has a better win rate than Jax. But honestly, I'd take the Jax or the Fiora.
who was it? The one on it? Broken Blade won.
Breathe won a game.
Breathe won.
Again, so you have to be literally the best in the world to win it. And then there was one other. There was
Was it Zeus?
Zeus.
Yeah.
And
That was Zeus was the first game.
I think Zeus. I think the only Fiora that's impressed me is Zeus Fiora.
yeah.
That was
Zeus
the ghost
Fiora
one.
was when, because what I often think of when I see Fiora is that you pick it into a tank, you leave that lane in isolation. If they try to gank the Fiora, she'll eventually be ahead, so it's no point for the enemy jungler to play topside. You all play bot side, and the Fiora has like a 30 CS lead in a couple plates, right?
Yeah.
But in most cases, the Fiora has nothing, and the CS is even. And like the Wunder game, when I can't remember who it was against. Was it against Fudge? The Wunder game? I think it was Fnatic C9 where they were playing
Yeah.
Ornn Fiora,
Yeah.
and the Ornn's just even. And I think there was a similar one with Broken Blade versus Impact, where
Yep.
the Ornn, the Maokai was just even. But the Zeus game,
Yep.
this guy was like 40 CS up. He had 4 plates, and the Fiora was just like running rampant on side lane. If you can
Yep.
get to that point, I'm all for it. If
I
you
like-
can't get to that point and win your lane and smash it, then I'm kind of like, I'm on the same.
To
boat.
Isaac's credit, he's the only one who took Ghost, and I wonder if that's just going to be some of the tech to like run people down in long lanes.
Ghost is also, I think, way better for team fighting than Flash is.
Yeah.
I think like in a lot of the cases, because you already have lunge, like you already kind of have like your little mini gap closer. I think Ghost is just so strong in team fighting because you can actually get the resets. It like allows you to stick to people really well.
It also makes sense when you're trying to proc multiple marks. Too,
And your
you know
ult
what I
gives
mean?
you move speed, right? So
Yep.
you can chase with Ghost and your Qs like proccing nonstop.
Yep.
It's-
Something worth considering.
I think Ghost is really, really strong. Obviously, Flash has more playmaking ability and stuff, but like Ghost is really powerful. But I mean, I agree with you in general. Like I just think that it's like, yes, if you can create that massive advantage where it's like you're farming plates, you're up CS, whatever, you have huge pressure, they're locked under a tower, then like it's great. But it seems so difficult to get to that point. And oftentimes you just have like a Fiora on even keeled that just is forced to join team fights.
Yeah.
Because you can't seem to end the game through side. We're seeing no games ended through side, like at all at Worlds, right?
Yeah.
It's get an advantage inside and then come to the fight.
Contest midwave.
Yeah. And so it's like if you're going to be doing that, like I would rather see Jax. I would way rather see Camille for like that style of champion. A team that has a champion that has an easier time team fighting. Fiora, it's like if you play everything perfectly, like it can work out in lane, and then you come to the team fight and you like you time your parry perfectly and you do get perfect flank and you do all these things right, then it can look really good.
Yeah.
But it just seems like very, very difficult to get to that point.
Yeah, she just feels like her minimum guaranteed output is so low. When you compare it to like Ornn, when you even compare it to Camille or Jax, champions that are similar in class, like the guaranteed minimum she can provide in a fight is nothing. Like Jax can stun somebody, you know what I mean? No matter what the fight, like, or get a flash or get a summoner spell. Like Camille will stun somebody, lock somebody down. You know, if she's super far ahead, she'll one shot someone, she'll go to the next one. Even Fiora, like, yeah, I don't know.
How much of Fiora do you think is a scrim champ? You know, you played in scrims, you like 1v2 the enemy top jungle on a side lane.
I mean, she for sure has all the identities
Nash.
of Scrim Champ. No utility, very strong in
like,
specific context.
I feel like what I presume happened with the Fiora conundrum is Eastern teams arrived, Western teams scrimmed them, they played their tanks, the Fiora in scrims destroyed the tank, then they tried to imitate the same thing, and they never got the same results. So I feel like, as much as I said before, Rogue was scrimming G2 for a week, you can also get fake data by scrimming an Eastern team, thinking that they're playing something that's strong that you can then execute on. Then you try and execute it, then you suck at it. And now all of a sudden you're like, wait, we could have been practicing our old style. Whereas Rogue never changed their style, right?
Yeah.
They stuck to the same style ever since they played against Fnatic in that semis. And maybe since they were scrimming G2 the whole time, they just never found a different style. Maybe they tried out Maokai, added it to the pool. They added an extra control mage. They made sure Lucian Nami was still strong. Whereas maybe I feel like NA, for example, got sucked into a different scrim meta and they're just not playing like themselves.
I don't agree with that. So like with I could totally see, I think you're making a good point, but I think in this specifically the case of Fiora, I don't think it's true because that's actually how C9 won playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Like that Aatrox was really, really strong and no one really had good answers to Aatrox. And then against 100 Thieves and against EG, both those first two series wins were based around counterpicks to it. And it was Fiora, it was Camille, and it was Kennen.
I remember Fiora a lot of the time as well.
Someday brought it out after because they got clapped by Fudge's counterpicks. So then after that, Someday started playing it. So in lower bracket, when he played EG, he started bringing out Fiora, and then he also tried to bring out Fiora in the finals. But like it was Fudge that actually like started that meta, and at least in NA, he was kind of clapping. So I think it was just kind of a continuation of that, and people thought that Aatrox was going to be good at Worlds. That's what worked in NA.
Yep.
And I know. I feel like Fudge is getting a lot of hate, and I see a lot of people roasting him. It's like, why would you ever think it? Like, you could play carries, you stupid NA dog, whatever, you know? Like, it's like, bro, literally, do you not remember last time he was international?
He was doing well.
He was actually stomping. Like, he was playing so well on the Lee Sin picks and stuff. Like, he was playing carry picks and smurfing. So it's like, yeah, it didn't work out. Yeah, he's not doing well. You know, you can criticize the play, but I think I saw LS tweeting about this as well. And the idea that it's like people tend to like to rewrite history, you know, a little bit where it's like, he was never good, or this never would have worked. Like, you know, you have to play tanks. It's like, well, like, did it look good? Was the Fiora the right read? I don't think Fiora was the right read, but also like he made carry picks work internationally as a top laner.
Yeah, I don't know if you have the same thing, but this is my third Worlds now. But the feeling I get is like these fans just come out of nowhere because they love Worlds, but they've not watched any domestic leagues, and they just come into Worlds and they're like, oh yeah, I remember him from last Worlds. That's all I remember. Or I remember him from like MSI, and
Well,
then like
maybe
just,
they
like,
watch-
shit on everything, and they're like, why did you ever do this? And you're like, but they did it in the finals. Like, I don't give a crap. And it's like, did you watch the finals? No. Okay, well, what the hell are you even? Hello?
Bro, I just feel like it's inevitable. Like, because you watch one region, obviously. If you're a league fan, maybe you're just here for
Yeah, a
international,
lot of
which is
the league fans are,
understandable,
like,
you know.
domestic,
Or you just watch LEC and then you come to Worlds.
Yeah, exactly,
You know what I mean?
right.
And like, people also have such short-term memory, and people also just grasp onto really simple things. X champion bad. That's why our meta segment's great. We're like, hey guys, MF bad. Now next week, someone will be like, you idiot! Why did you pick MF? And then we'll do well, and it'll be like, wait, shit. You know? Like,
Yeah.
people like simple concepts.
No, we've never
I don't
been
know.
wrong about these types
No,
of
yeah,
things.
Never
just
wrong
I
there.
see that like some like this is not all fans at all. I feel like there's a lot of like regional people who know quite well about what their domestic league or the league they watch is, but like Worlds
Like,
fans just come
everyone
out of the
watches
shadows every
Dive
Worlds,
Warrior.
and they're just like
Yep.
flaming everything, and then they go back in their shadows until the next Worlds, and they come out and
Yeah.
they shit on everyone, and they come back out.
Yeah. We're not talking about the people who would be watching this because only the most intelligent and handsome people.
6 foot Giga
Yeah,
Chad.
yeah,
Yeah.
Just stunningly.
Jaw-
They're all
Cutting
6'4" and row for UC Davis.
Hell yeah. Wait, they what? Who's UC Davis? Is that a character?
It's a school. It's fine. Bro. It's fine. You're good. UC Davis is the next league champ.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's like a
Sounds
boat.
like
It's like
Davy
a
Jones'
boat. It's like a
locker.
boat. It's a boat theme.
Like Gangplank?
Yeah, yeah, kind of like a Gangplank
Yeah.
thing. It's
So
like
he's
a ghost
Bilgewater?
ship.
Yeah.
UC Davis.
He just
it's like
rows,
Kunkka?
rows around.
Rows
He's just on a kayak.
Like the Elden Ring, like the undead bosses,
Yeah,
they're
the
like
ones that
randomly
summon
on the
skeletons.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
exactly it.
Yeah, it's
It's like a
yeah.
budget Yorick Nami hybrid. You're gonna
Why
love
do they
it.
call him UC Davies? Why don't they just
Bro,
call him like
I don't know.
well, Davy Jones is copyrighted. I've heard. So
Yeah, yeah. So they got to branch out.
they could come up with
All
something
right.
cooler like
not to because we have a week 2 we kind of need to talk about. So moving on, just to like cap this off. Who is the standout? We talked about standout picks. We talked about standout who teams. Who is your standout player?
Gala. I think Gala is playing out of his mind. I think this meta is so good for Gala, and he's like the Kai'Sa like connoisseur.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I don't have my phone, my laptop, or anything, but I think he only has like 1 death the entire tournament. And what I will say is, I think Group D is the easiest for the major regions. Right? I feel like if you look at other groups, it's like the triple major regions are just innately a little bit stronger. Like Rogue, Top Esports, DRX, JDGG to Demon.
It's got a 40 KDA.
40 KDA.
Not bad.
And, ooh, 25 CSD at 15. Ooh, 24.3, but I like to round up. I think he's been performing really exceptionally well. I think there's not a single like part, like misposition, lane phase, like mistakes. There's like, I feel like this guy is the one player I look at Worlds who hasn't made any mistakes, and he's just like impressing me the most.
He's just the ideal player.
Yeah.
I mean,
Gala, Aphelios,
it's
Gala,
hard for me
Kai'Sa.
to knock that. I also really like that he's played just Aphelios and Kai'Sa. I think Kai'Sa is going to be a big champion as we get further and further, especially like, again, when you're playing like the EU style, maybe not as much, you know, with like the more early game focus, but like the amount of champions who in top lane, when you get out of the tank world, the Jaxes, the Aatroxes who can get on backline, provide CC, provide an enabler for Kai'Sa to get into a backline is like at high. And those are the situations where I love having Kai'Sa on a team because it's a champion you just don't need to worry about. You don't have to fight front to back. You can if she can hit front line. If you're not just outranged, I love Kai'Sa. When Kai'Sa's good, she's so good.
I mean, Gomeushi Kai'Sa was also really insane. Like
Mhm.
Kai'Sa is just always a fun champ to watch. I think it has some instances where like blind Kai'Sa can be a bit difficult if like Draven's open and stuff like this, or there's
Yeah.
a Kalista lane that you get counterpicked on support. But in some cases, I think Kai'Sa is quite a good blind, depending on events like Caitlyn too.
One situation I never like Kai'Sa in though is when people are just playing front to back and then they just draft Kai'Sa, and it's like,
Yeah.
like I think you want to play Kai'Sa with dive, right?
Yeah, like yeah, I agree.
because it's like I hate the games where it's like if people are going just like cracking PD and just only hitting front line, I'm just like, why aren't you just playing like Aphelios or something else?
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
also want to give special shout out to Ming as well. I think Gala's been playing insanely well,
Ming's
but
nuts.
Ming has been playing really well too. Like I can't say Gala without just giving Ming a lot of praise because like this guy has always been like the set enjoyer. And we finally got to see like Ming set at Worlds, like an international event, and
It did not disappoint.
it
Oh,
is
the
it
four-man-
was
the four-man
nasty,
face
man.
breaker.
Oh
my
That's,
God,
that's
Blade.
just
to the 2K or 3K damage or whatever it was with like no items. Just
that's just a taste of the Ming set, baby. Leona not banned. Ooh,
Just a
set
little
game.
nibble.
Yeah,
There's a
just
little more to
nibble.
come.
There's gonna be more to come. Trust me. Ming on engaged supports. Ooh, gives me the goosebumps. No more Lulu Yumi karma.
trying to think. I mean, Gala Ming is like such a good. They're an easy win because they're 3-0 and they individually have just been so damn good.
I think my other shout out to like Comp. I think Comp has been
Comp has
playing-
been great. I think the fact that Comp is busting out the same stuff that he did domestically and still finding big success. The Lucian Nami game,
like the
Mind
mechanics
blower.
in that lane. You know, when they killed them 2v2 level 3, he like dashed forwards, fake autoed, cancelled his auto, right?
Mhm.
And as he cancelled it, he stepped to the right, and then the Amumu Q missed him because he thought he was going to stand still an auto.
Yep.
And then he auto, flash WQ. It was the cleanest mechanics I've ever seen. Also, his Kalista was like the way he kites is just flawless, I think. So I think those are my like 3 shoutouts.
What about I still think actually some of the best performers from play-ins are some of the best performers in Worlds. I still think
Zeka.
Humanoid and Zeka.
Yeah, Humanoid
Yeah.
Zeka.
Actually-
Humanoid and Zeka have actually like maintained that level. Like I do love the Gala shout out. Absolutely. Him and Ming have been smurfing it. But I do think definitely some respect given to Humanoid and Zeka. And I'm glad because I was actually really impressed in all the games I watched of Zeka, regionally.
Yeah.
And he's a player that I felt like no one knew, right? Like he doesn't have a name.
Yeah.
Unless you watch LCK, then I think people kind of knew him.
The mid
But-
jungle just don't have name. Oh, not mid top. The solo lanes of DRX are just not very well known. in the
Yeah,
West.
and I think that now people are seeing this guy is good. This guy is legit, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really really exciting. This as far as like a dark horse for a good performer, one that I know for sure no one would say. I wonder how you guys feel about how Knight has been doing, because I actually feel like in a lot of the games, I'm looking at the top games and I'm like, the game is fucked, but maybe Knight can carry. And it feels like that actually in a lot of the games. And I was curious because I was thinking about that. And then I went back to actually like try to like check and see if stats actually supported it at all. He has the second highest gold diff at 10. He's one of the highest DPM in the tournament. And it's like his team is just losing, but I feel like overall, Knight has been having some pretty good performances.
The Ari game was
Our
nasty.
game obviously insane.
Yeah,
The-
this is like more of like a dark horse,
Yeah.
but just as like just a curious to hear his take on him, because top seems like cooling disappointing.
I mean,
but Knight has been really good in his Azir games as well.
I think Knight has been good, and depending on how you look at like the definition of like MVP, etc., I feel like if top do make it out of groups, it has to be because of Knight. Because like we've seen, Jackie Love has had okay games, feels like he's getting caught. Wayward's really been struggling. Tien's been fine. I feel like Mark's also been fine, but I feel like Knight on his team is definitely absolutely the best performer, and I think you're right to highlight that he has been super solid, super
The
consistent.
golden left hand, baby. You gotta love that title.
Dude,
That's
China
just-
has the best titles.
Yeah.
I feel like anytime we try to do that shit, it's super cringe. But then I
Well,
hear
I
it
think
coming.
First Blood King was the only like
First
good
Blood
one.
King was good, but then it was like hasn't been true for like a gajillion years.
But like Unkillable Demon King.
We've got Blabber
golden
the
left
Crabber,
hand.
and they have the unkillable demon king.
We've got Humanoid. We've got what else?
Umayan was actually
Umayan was
one.
pretty good. I don't know where that it was.
It was
random as hell.
randomly name generated. Perk said.
Oh my
And then we
God.
just came up with it and put it in. And then
Claps and craps. Like none of our names are very flattering. You know what I mean? They're just like
They're fun. They're not epic.
yeah,
not
where's like the
epic.
faker and the fake or something like that? When he plays
Yeah.
good and plays bad. Why do
why do I feel
Shaker.
like
Everyone calls him Shaker.
Oh yeah, Shaker.
why do
that's
I
true.
feel like
Staker
we're
and
a
Shaker.
sports team playing against the entire cast of Naruto every time we step up? You know what I mean? Like these guys all have like the coolest names
Demon
ever.
King, the
You
golden
know?
left hand. Is there any more? I can't think.
There's lots of meme names for the other regions too, like Birtle. Everyone's calling him Burden,
Burden.
and stuff like
Yes,
that.
yes.
I mean, there's funny names
Showmaker,
everywhere.
Shoemaker. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them actually. I think like
Yeah.
the Caps Claps thing, Craps is like a.
those are just fun names.
yeah,
That's
those are
true.
fun
Yeah.
names, yeah.
Those are
I mean, you really can't beat Unkillable Demon King, but also you have to be a legend to get a name like that. Otherwise, it's kind of cringe.
That is true.
It's kind of cringe.
I feel like
Yeah.
don't you think though, when someone try to give someone like a super fucking epic name, you call someone the Unkillable Demon King when they're like the 4th best mid in a regional league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just
to be
like,
fair, like we call Larson like Ginger God, you know what I mean? But it's like also it's tongue in cheek, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's like low key a meme.
The Ginger God.
Also, there's no gingers in the LPL and LCK, so you're safe.
There you go.
Jackie Love has red.
Jackie Lab's Reddit. I
That's
don't
true.
think that
It's
counts,
true.
Don't
but
count.
Is it natural? Do you think?
Yeah, it looks about
It could be.
looks
It could
about
be.
natural. Yeah. World's exciting, man. That's all I'm saying. Like this is, I think we came into the tournament expecting like 8 Eastern teams to just make knockouts, and now there's been a lot of not upsets, but like the gauge of strength from Europe especially has just been. I mean, it's wrong. It
Yeah.
seems like they're pretty competitive, and hopefully the LCS can bounce back in this second group stage, pick up some of their wins, at least try to force some tiebreakers. But the problem is, it's tough because in 3 of the groups they're 3-0. So to actually like force a tiebreaker, in most cases you need to go 3-0 yourself, I think.
Mhm.
But the teams that are 3-0, for context, right now, Rogue, JDG, and RNG, they are guaranteed, I think, from format-wise, they are guaranteed at least a tiebreaker for second to get out of the group, as far as I'm aware,
Yeah.
if you're 3-0 in the first stage. So the teams of the 3 now likely will be the ones getting out, of course.
Yeah, you have to expect that, and it's going to be really interesting to see what the draw looks like for the quarterfinals. Draw is always such a banger. You always like it's especially when you get like one EU team out or one NA team out. It feels like the death sentence. It's like, am I getting a semi this year or not? You know, like is there a road to finals for me or not, depending on how the draft comes out.
I mean, that's why I think if you're an EU fan, you have to be really excited for a Rogue because to me, it's like if you don't get first in your group, you're not getting semis.
Yeah.
There's too many death sentences. There's too many bombs to hit in quarterfinals. I think you kind of need to win your group. Because if you hit one of the like absolute tournament favorites in quarters, maybe you can pull off the upset.
Here's the plan.
But most time it's lights out.
Here's the plan. Ready?
Yeah.
Rogue first in group C.
Okay.
Fnatic second in group A.
Okay.
Cannibalize each other to get the semis. Call it a day.
Yeah.
Top 4 in the world.
Happy days.
Vedius.
I thought you were gonna give me a team out that they could beat.
Oh no! Wow.
Well,
You're like no.
Maybe they can.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro.
But what I will say is shout out to Vedius. Because after the finals in the LEC, he gave me a hot take and he said, I genuinely think that Europe will get 2 teams to quarters and 1 to semis this year. Like, unironically. And I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, I did not think that at all.
There's no way. And he was
That
like,
is
yeah, I'm serious. They will.
hot take.
Okay, we'll
Respect
see.
to him and his crystal ball. All right.
Not happened yet, but maybe. It looks like it could happen. Semis a stretch, but quarters, yeah, maybe.
We got one last award to give out.
Okay.
The inaugural Giga Chat Award.
The inaugural Giga Chat Award.
And I've got a candidate, but I want to
Okay.
know if anyone instantly comes to your mind.
Ming. Malrang.
I was going to say Malrang.
Nuggery. A little bit. Just go 0-4-0. Have a competitive game. Lose. Say it was a team diff. Refuse to elaborate. Good old Nuggery.
Yo, my vote is for Malrang. I'll just say it. This man just slams Jarvan
And
on
then he gets
international
serrated
stage.
Dirk on his second base.
Serrated Dirk, lethal tempo. He's just walking in, just wailing.
And then he just go, I don't know, I just go in.
Lee picks Lee Sin, roundhouse kicking,
Yeah.
dreams.
Malrang's up there for the Giga Chat Award.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
And I want to be clear that this award is slightly undefined by design, but anyone who's just done, even if it's been int, anyone who's just been
It's pretty well
fearless,
defined. It's if you're a Giga Chad, you
Yeah,
can win
you're
the
a
Giga Chad award.
Giga Chat Award. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 369 is always like the Giga Chat that strikes me as well. I'm trying to think of others.
I just like, even though Wayward's having a bad event, I just love watching Wayward, how he's just
like jumps from
sprinting it
towers.
down and just spam emoting. I feel like that's Giga Chad.
That's up there.
Goes 0-6-0, team favorite.
Misses every knock.
Honestly,
misses every knock.
him and Nuguri are like
Spam emotes.
fighting for the award. Just the absolute shameless top laners.
I think Odo cannot be up there as well. The Maokai like 1v4 with like a Nami next to him, stopping the whole Baron, just like fighting everyone
The
with a
immune to
Sunfire
death.
cape.
Yeah.
Almost top damage on his team.
The thing about Odo, the fact that his like he's just perpetually looks like he doesn't want to be here is like my favorite thing about Odo. He just perpetually looks unexcited. And that's like, I think Odo will always be a Giga Chad, but I don't know if he deserves the Giga Chad award in the context of this tournament.
He is a bit of a Chad, though. I respect it. Yeah, I think that's.
I'm inclined. I think Wayward and Nuguri are the best options because Malrang's hype, but there is something especially about the like emoting.
We'll do
and dying.
Malrang, Wayward, and Nuguri. We got to keep
The three together.
Chads, the 3 jaw.
If you have ever relentlessly fed in lane and spammed emotes, you are a candidate for the Giga Chad award.
How about Jackie Love, tied for most deaths of ADCs and
Legend.
second highest
Okay,
DPM?
actually, though, to
Classic-
be fair, the
classic
way
Jackie
the
Love.
way
Second
he
highest
walks
DPM, most
as
deaths.
Varus, I swear to God, he's like, do what you won't. He's like dares, and they do almost every time.
I was like, I
He like-
really didn't think you would.
he fakes. He's got
It's like,
7.
do you know
behind
who I
him.
am? And they're like, yes, you're a Varus at level 6. He's like, I meant Jackie Love. Like, oh, no.
And then he dies. He's like, I'll get you next time.
This time they're not going to.
You will get away with this.
Yeah, Jackie Love on a mobile carries is definitely a sight to behold.
Well,
He's
Jackie
like
Love
frontlining.
also on mobile carries is a sight to behold.
True, yeah.
When,
then he
he's
goes-
on in the mobile carry, he's frontlining, but when he's on a mobile carry,
He's diving.
He's backlining.
Yeah.
He's backlining the enemy team.
yeah. I love Jackie Love. He's such a fucking psycho.
He is simultaneously the greatest and the worst AD carry at all times.
And that's
Of all
why you
time.
love him. That's
Yeah.
why you gotta love him.
It's so good. He's actually, you know what lane I would pay to watch? Just one time. I know it's impossible. Hylissang Jackie Love. I would.
It's not impossible.
I would.
Didn't they play each other in a 5-game series?
No, I think he means on the same team.
On the same
Oh,
team.
on the
Hill
same
is saying Jackie Love.
Both of them just mute their entire top side and just like go in on cooldown and then just say like, why the fuck is it in the jungle?
They would either win everything or literally
you like
nothing.
literally watch them 2v5 one game into hard sprinting it down the next game.
There's a player on
Maybe
FPX.
the same game.
There's
Yeah.
a player on FPX called Hung,
Yep.
H-A-N-G, and this guy is like Hillehung. That's what I call him as well. Because
Hillehung.
this guy only goes forwards. Enchanter, yeah, he's gonna flash in level 1 and try and kill you. Him with Jackie Love would be
All
pretty
right,
funny.
who's the absolute Giga Chad team? So we have the Shy, we have Hilly, Jackie Love, bot lane.
Hi.
The
We
Shy,
have Malrang
Hilly,
jungle.
Jackie Love, Malrang.
Who's
the
mid laner?
lane? Like, who's the? I'm thinking to the Caps, but because he like the way he just ran through the towers, just
He
like
just does
standing there
randomly
tanking
do
them.
crazy stuff.
He does randomly do crazy stuff.
Zeka looks Giga Chad.
Zeka does have the
Yeah.
He's got the Giga Chad vibes.
He does. I think humanoid maybe as well.
Yeah,
humanoid also up there. Not in the concurrent
So we've
control
got-
major.
But he's not like,
Yeah.
we need like a more crazy person. We need the 5 crazy people.
The Shy, Jackie Love, Hillesang, Malrang, and who's the mid laner?
Jojo.
Jojo.
That's actually
That's
such
it,
a
actually.
that's actually such a banger, dude. Can you just
It's actually Jojo.
you
Yeah.
can just imagine he's just
Could also-
flanked. He's flanked by the Shy and Jackie Love, and he's just
He
here.
just insta-lock
I
Singed
can see him
mid.
just flaming his own team. Just like, why are you guys sprinting it right now? Like,
Yeah, true. The only other candidate that came to my
Honestly-
head was Doinby, but I'm kind of like, well,
that's the part that
That's
makes me the
JoJo.
most sad.
Yeah,
Is
it's
I just
JoJo.
want JoJo to win. Like even as an EU pundit, I want
Jojo's been good.
and JoJo's been good. I love JoJo. JoJo's my favorite
Yeah.
NA player ever. Actually,
his branding is good, isn't
it's
it?
just so good.
He just doesn't hold back, does he?
He talks stuff even when he
And
gets
it's always
beat
before
on.
the game. He
Yes,
sends it.
thank you. Because most people are too scared to tweet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they
like
tweet
it's,
after.
it's very refreshing. I love JoJo.
And especially when they lose, they're like, yeah, well, I had a good game, but we had a good game, but we lost and they were the better team. And then he's just like
The next
all
right.
chatting constantly.
here to beat
Yeah.
the hell out of EU today. Just
Yeah.
like next
Like
day.
they joined the lobby yesterday and they were against, who were they against yesterday? EG? It was a JD? No, it was Damwon, right?
It's done.
Yeah.
He joined the lobby. In the lobby, he was like, hello, 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 answer me, hello, in the lobby. And no one was responding. And he was like, hello, you guys there? Question mark, question mark. It's like, doesn't give up, this guy. Then when the game starts, he writes, hello, hello, in whole chat. It's like, Jojo, chill out.
He's actually so funny. Like
high APM player.
he's always he'll like spam the emotes in the client and stuff too. Like he'll just be spamming like a laughing, crying emoji, or he'll do the like spook face. He's like, please don't show me at me, like please.
Yeah.
And at the start of every game in NA and stuff, he'll be like, oh God, you took Comet Scorch, didn't you? Oh, Biscuits too, I'm going down. Like, it's like it's a lane gap, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
he's funny. He's so funny.
I
love him.
All right. Coming up
All
in
right.
traditional groups fashion, we got 4 back-to-back days of groups. Each day will close out a group. Day 1 is Group A, starting with Fnatic C9, a revenge. The potential C9 will have to do the Fnatic Classic if they want to make it out, which is, of course, 3-0.
Need momentum.
Momentum, speed, energy.
Yeah.
yep.
6 foot vertical.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see if they can adjust at all in week 2. I don't think they're going to get out, but I hope that they can show. I do believe, as much as people always are going to say Kobe makes excuses, whatever. I do believe they're playing below their level.
Yeah.
I want to see them at least turn in some solid games, right? Because this has not been a good tournament. They are, like, as I said, they were the team that I had the most hopes for. I still thought they were underdogs to get out of the group, but I thought they had a realistic shot if they played at their best.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that they can show that. I'm hoping that they can get some wins, at least have some competitive games, and use it as a learning experience. But I mean, Group A, I just think is such a banger. Group A is to me like the most exciting group.
Absolutely.
I think it's very up in the air still. Fnatic obviously got some huge wins in the first go round. We have Fnatic C9, then Fnatic T1. Like first 2 games of the day, if you're an EU fan, that's going to decide a lot of the group right there.
Yeah,
So
because we're doing each group on each day, right?
Yep.
So it'll
Yep,
be
yep,
Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D on day 1, 2, 3, 4.
yep. So it's going to be really, really fun. And
Also,
I mean, things
show
also
starts
change.
earlier.
Show
yes.
starts earlier.
Show starts earlier. I think it starts at 10 p.m. in Europe or 11, but now it'll start at like 8 or 9 p.m.
It's 2 hours earlier.
2 hours earlier.
Whatever it was for you before, it's 2 hours earlier.
Yeah, because of tiebreakers, possible tiebreakers.
conversions hard. Do you want to do some quick fire, just like real fast around the table group predictions? Just 2 teams you think get it
Yeah,
out.
cool.
We can follow up on them in the coming episode.
Okay.
Nice.
Group A, I'll say Fnatic T1.
Hell yeah.
Group B, I'll say hot take Damwon G2. Group C, I'll say DRX Rogue.
Okay.
Group D, I think it's Gen G, RNG. I think that's. I said at the
That
start of
one's
the tournament.
free.
I
That
think
one's a
Group
free-
D is
that's
the
a
easiest to
freebie.
predict. But I think coming into the tournament, the easiest predictions for your pick'ems were just 8 LCK and LPL teams. You know, it's
Yeah.
like Group A, EDG T1, Group B, JDG Damwon, Group C, Top Esports DRX, Group D, Gen G RNG. Oh my god, I know exactly what's gonna happen. But now I think, I don't know, just throwing some hot takes. I think,
Yeah.
I think JDG and Top Esports might not get out, but
You think
kinda
JDG
funny.
won't get out?
I just-
The 3-0 JDG.
I just put Damwon.
The
Because
hottest
in my
of
pick'ems,
takes.
I put Damwon G2. I don't
Okay,
want
okay,
to.
That's the most
I think that
euphoria.
is-
You've been just been
that is the
huffing
most
the
euphoria
euphoria,
pick,
bro.
actually.
Yeah, Group B is JDG
Yeah.
Damwon, but you know.
Well, I mean,
euphoria.
G2 could get out, but it's like if
Uh-huh.
G2 were to get
Keep
out,
beating. Keep going. Keep going.
if G2 were to get out, wouldn't it be more likely that they get it over Damwon? They're only one game back.
Yeah.
JDG choke it 0-3.
Look, he's good at analysis, but not the math part of analysis. Okay, he struggles.
That was like the Dagda 90-50-10 where he said 90% chance that an LPL team bombs out in groups, 50% chance that quarterfinals is all LPL LCK.
We're 60% of the time
Wait,
LCK.
the numbers are really lining up here, Dagda. If there's a 90% chance they're out, how is there 90% chance they're all in?
Yeah, oh my God. Okay, I'll change to JDG. Damwon.
What? No, you're fine. You keep it. You said it.
No, it's my pick'ems anyway. So,
So were you
basically
going?
locked in.
You were going all three? EU?
Hell yeah, baby.
Bro, you're...
I'm coped up after that first group stage.
Oh my God.
You
All right.
coped up as well?
No,
Oh.
I'm going EDG Fnatic, and then
Based.
I'm going JDG Damwon, of course,
Okay.
and then Rogue DRX and RNG Genji. I'm very basic in my predictions. I think the only
So you're
controversial.
basically just doing everyone who's already top two?
Well, I mean, T1 is the
Cringe.
only one that I'm really cutting out, right?
Okay.
I think
Well,
'cause
T1 is tied, I guess. Yeah.
T1 is tied, right? And I
Yeah.
think they're listed third on this graphic because of Alphabet. But no, yeah, I think that based on what we saw, like T1 could turn it around, but I think that I haven't seen them draft the way that EDG and Fnatic are drafting, and I like what EDG and Fnatic are doing a lot more than what T1 is doing. That
Yeah.
said, they're still insane players. Zeus is still like an absolute menace, or has the potential to be an absolute menace in the context of this group. So I think it could go either way, but I believe in the scaling side of this group, which is EDG and Fnatic. I feel like.
LCK week 2 is stage 2 is scary though.
Yeah.
It's scary.
I'm gonna go T1 Fnatic. I'm gonna go JDG Damwon. That's not spicy at all. I'm gonna go Rogue. I think Top will bounce back. I think Top will bounce back. Just because they had bad games week 1, to me, because I've watched them have horrible games, then have amazing games, doesn't just eliminate
Poor
them.
Zeka.
I think Top could bounce back and get out, and then
Group
very
D
very
is-
boring Group D.
Just say Flying Oysters.
I'm
do
going
it.
Flying Oyster 100 Thieves.
To be fair,
my
there's
man.
Yeah, I feel like Group A is spicy, and I feel like there's some room for interpretation in Group C. But like Group B feels pretty decided unless you're, I think, deep on the EU Hopium, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about G2.
Wait, what?
And Group D is done. Group D just feels like wrap it up, boys. Let's see
Yeah.
who gets first seed and get on with it.
I mean, Group D felt done before.
But I do
World
want to see a
started.
Gen G
Yeah.
RNG tiebreaker. I want to see Gen
That's
G
a-
win it
that's a
and then get the
slapper.
third game so we get like
That would be
cheeky
really, really
BO3.
hype.
That's a slapper.
Little
Yeah,
cheeky BO3 before the playoffs, before the knockout stage.
Nice.
Nice.
Banger. All right.
All right.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Dives. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you
Dive
subscribe.
Dive Say Dive Foria.
For this episode of The Dive for you.
Thank you. Thank
if you're
you.
watching on YouTube, make sure this is literally autopilot. My brain just went to what I've said 1,000 times. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe not to the LCS YouTube, but to LOL Esports, because this is Dive for you, an international product with my international brethren here. For all the full episodes, we'll be doing one more episode from New York, and then one in Atlanta and one in San Francisco before all the weekends of games. So a lot more still coming at you. Thank you, Gotham Studios, for hosting us for today's episode, and make sure to tweet any questions
Not bad.
you have. It is, yes. You have for us throughout the world, so we can answer them in future episodes. Use the hashtag. We'll say Dive for you, and, and you can we can grab your
You can
questions
ask
from
us
that.
anything
Wait, did
you
they film
want.
Batman in New York?
They filmed Batman in the studio.
And this is what they're
Yeah,
for. This is what
you're
they're
actually
known for.
sitting in the Batmobile right now.
You remember that scene where like the Joker pulls the pencil out and bam, that was right here.
Yeah.
I know it looked like a kitchen or an
Nope,
industrial
wasn't
complex
there.
or a parking
was here.
garage.
My
It was-
God.
no.
Worlds
This
continues
is
Thursday,
crazy.
October 13th, the completion of Group A. Things kick off with Fnatic versus Cloud9.
3 p.m. Eastern Time or 9 p.m. CEST.
For most of you Fnatic fans, we'll see you there as we wrap up the group stage.
Bye.